My sister Lauren slept with my boyfriend during college, so I cut her out of my life. That's the headline. That's why when I got married on May 18th in Portland, she wasn't invited. And when my mother, Margaret, said she wouldn't come if Lauren couldn't, I told her I understood. People love to ask how it got that bad. It started in April in Ann Arbor. I got up for water, walked past my then-boyfriend Tyler's door, and saw Lauren's thin gold bracelet catch the lamplight. I didn't storm in. I didn't cause a scene. I did what nice daughters do, swallowed it and called silence maturity. By June 3rd on the lake in Traverse City, my mother slid me a plate of pie and said, "Be the bigger person." I smiled because smiling was cheaper than war. What I didn't know yet is that Peace with Bullies has a monthly fee. Then February 10th in Portland, Ethan proposed over takeout in our kitchen, and I said yes like my lungs had been waiting for oxygen. We called my parents. My mother said congratulations, and in the same breath, "Of course Lauren will be a bridesmaid." I said no. She said, "If you don't invite her, I don't know how I can be there." I told her I loved her and I was done paying interest on someone else's choice. By early March, the group chat became a tribunal. An aunt sent quotes about forgiveness with sparkles. A cousin texted that I was embarrassing my mother. Lauren wrote a 9-paragraph email that never once used the word accountability. I didn't reply. I printed letters instead, one to Lauren in Encinitas, one to my parents in Traverse City, and spelled out what the boundary actually was. I wanted a wedding where I didn't have to scan the room for a threat dressed up as family. This wasn't revenge, it was maintenance. On May 18th, under a wooden arch by the river, my dad Robert walked me down the aisle. My mother's chair stayed empty. It didn't feel cruel. It felt clean. That's where this story begins, with a choice I should have made years ago, and the people who couldn't stand that I finally did. I didn't trust myself to type. Screens make everything feel negotiable. So I printed 2 letters, one to my parents in Traverse City, one to Lauren in Encinitas, and I wrote like I was filing a maintenance report on a house I still had to live in. I put the history on paper. April in Ann Arbor, the half-open door, the gold bracelet, the version of me who thought silence was maturity. I named what it cost, how I kept choosing peace that only protected the person who broke it. Then I drew the line in plain English. Lauren wasn't invited to my wedding on May 18th in Portland. Not to punish her. To protect me. I didn't ask for permission or understanding. I asked for respect. I dropped the envelopes in the blue box by the co-op and went home to scrub the kitchen like I was scraping burnt sugar off the past. By early March, the family group chat had turned into a weather system. First came the drizzle. Families heal when we all try. Then the sideways wind. Screenshots of forgiveness quotes made for mugs. My aunt from Ohio posted a Bible verse in glitter fonts. A cousin I hadn't seen since a childhood 4th of July said I was embarrassing my mother. No one used the word boundary. Everyone used the word love like a trump card. I muted the thread, and with Ethan finalized vendors and picked a 2-song first dance medley because he wanted Billie Holiday, and I wanted something modern. Compromise felt good when it wasn't about erasing myself. My dad called next. He'd read my letter, and more than he could say out loud, he understood. He didn't try to fix me or sell me a version of family that only worked if I shrank. He asked if he could walk me down the aisle. I said yes, and felt relief that actually rested. My mother answered by email. She didn't mention April in Ann Arbor. She mentioned May 18th and what people will think. She worried about the optics of an empty chair. She said Lauren was reaching out and ready to make amends before the holidays, like apologies have a seasonal aisle next to peppermint bark. Lauren's email arrived the same day. 9 paragraphs, 2 throwback photos, and a 10-syllable version of, "I'm sorry you feel that way." She said she was young. She said Tyler led her on. She said it was a mistake that happened to us, which is a neat trick if you can convince yourself gravity pushed you into someone else's bed. She wanted a chance to prove she'd grown. I looked for the sentence where she called it a choice. It wasn't there. I didn't respond. I wasn't opening that door just to argue over whether it was ever closed. The RSVP deadline showed up with more commentary than cards. A great uncle declined and added a note about what happens when daughters stop respecting their mothers. A second cousin accepted and DM'd that she was on my side privately, which is like offering a life jacket made of promises. I stopped checking Facebook and started sleeping. Ethan and I bought tulips from a stand and set them in a jar on the table. We practiced our vows with the windows cracked. When I stumbled, he squeezed my hand. The future stopped sounding like something I had to defend. My mother shifted from persuasion to pressure. If I insisted on excluding family, she wasn't sure she could bear the humiliation. She wrote, "What kind of daughter?" and left the rest implied. I saved the email in a folder labeled receipts and went for a walk by the river. The cherry blossoms were giving up their petals, carpeting the path in soft pink like forgiveness I didn't have to perform. A small box came in the mail, a silk scarf from the 90s I used to borrow for school pictures, and an album of Lauren and me, matching Easter dresses, sprinkler summers, the year we both had terrible bangs. Tucked in the back, my mother's tidy note, "Don't throw away your sister." Nostalgia is a talented lawyer. It argues precedent, distracts from evidence, and asks for leniency for old times' sake. But photos don't show what came after. They don't show April or the bracelet or how you can spend years being polite to a wound. I put the album back in the box and set it on a shelf. I didn't throw it away. I just refused to let it testify. Lauren tried again. Subject line, "One last try." She offered to fly up and apologize in person or attend and promise to stay out of the way. She'd come late, leave early, wear something neutral, be invisible if that helped. The math of it made me tired, as if regret accrues credit you can spend to buy access to someone else's milestone. I forwarded the email to receipts and shut my laptop. We finalized the guest list without Lauren and without my mother. The florist sent a mock-up of the arch. The bakery confirmed we still didn't want fondant, like we were refusing tradition. At my final fitting, I stood in front of the mirror in the Taylor's warm apartment while a radio played soft oldies and watched myself not disappear. That was the point, not the lace or the veil. The not disappearing. Word spread that my mother was organizing a family meeting the weekend before May 18th. I was invited to defend my decision, to hear everyone out, to find a middle. I declined. I didn't need a jury convened to debate the terms of my safety. They met without me. I know because my phone lit up after with Lauren's post about healing being hard when someone keeps picking at the scab. A few relatives liked it. One commented a heart. Another wrote, "Some people love the drama more than they love their family." I closed the app and let the room be quiet. The week of the wedding, my dad flew in and took me for coffee. He didn't circle the subject. He asked what I needed from him on the day. I told him I needed him to stand beside me and not apologize for it. He said okay, like a promise he could keep. 2 nights before May 18th, a letter from my mother arrived. It was short. She couldn't watch one daughter exclude another and hoped I'd reconsider at the door, because families are made at moments like this. I read it twice and waited for the guilt to bloom. It didn't. What came instead was the steadiness of choosing something and not needing the room to clap. I put her letter in receipts, packed my overnight bag for the hotel by the river, and tucked in my grandmother's earrings and the vows Ethan and I had rewritten until they felt like clothes we already wore. On the morning of May 18th, I watched the city trade silver for blue and thought about kitchens where people say things that sound like love and feel like erasure. At the venue, our planner asked if I wanted to keep the reserved sign on the seat where my mother would have been. I said no. The chair didn't need a billboard. An absence can be peaceful if you let it. My dad arrived with a pressed suit and nervous jokes. Ethan texted a photo of his tie tied wrong on purpose. The florist fastened tulips to the arch. There was no last-minute scramble, no whispered warning about sightings, no emergency I'd been trained to anticipate. When the quartet began the processional, my father took my arm. "Ready?" he asked. And for once, I was, not because everyone approved, but because I had finally decided to stop outsourcing my piece. The photos came back by the end of May. Tulips bright, Ethan laughing with his whole face, my father's hand steady on mine. In the background, there's a chair where a reserved sign could have been. There isn't. The space looks like a window. I posted 2 pictures and a thank you. I didn't post the chair. Within an hour, Lauren put up her own message about healing being hard when someone keeps picking at the scab. My aunt heart reacted. A cousin wrote that some people love drama more than family. A coworker from college DM'd me to say she was proud of me and then asked gently if I was sure this wasn't punishment. I typed and erased, and finally wrote the only thing that felt true. I didn't close a door. I finally stopped holding it open for a draft. By the first week of June, the inbox filled again. My mother sent a short note. She hoped we could reset before the holidays, as if the calendar could launder what happened. My father sent a photo of the river and one sentence about how beautiful the day was. Lauren wrote that she'd started therapy, that she was doing the work, that she'd like a chance to show me. She asked if we could meet somewhere neutral. The word neutral did a strange thing in my chest. There had never been anything neutral about how she moved through my life. I didn't answer for 3 days. I watered the plants. I organized the pantry. I tried to run and stopped halfway, winded by a feeling I recognized but couldn't name. It wasn't fear. It was the old reflex to make myself smaller just in case someone needed more room. On June 10th, I agreed to meet her. Not to reopen the door, just to look at it together once, and say out loud why it would stay shut. I arrived early and picked a table near a window. I told myself I could leave at any point, and that leaving would not be a failure. Lauren came in wearing that careful face people practice in bathroom mirrors. She looked thinner. She looked older. She looked like someone rehearsing sincerity, which is both an effort and a tell. She started with history, our childhood, the matching dresses, the summers at the lake. She said she missed me. She said she wanted me back. She said the word mistake like it was a stranger who had broken into her past and moved furniture around while she slept. I let her finish. Then I named it, Choice, and watched the room change shape. She flinched like a bright light had found her. I told her what April did to me, how many rooms I had sat in since then, pretending air could be enough when trust was gone. I told her what June on the lake felt like with pie in my hand, and my mother in my ear about being the bigger person. I said that forgiveness wasn't a key she could demand. It was my house to protect, and I would be the one to decide who came in. I said I wanted peace more than I wanted a performance of family. She said she was sorry. She said she'd been young. She said Tyler had told her we were on a break, like sitcom logic could retroactively bless betrayal. I waited for the sentence that mattered. I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway. It didn't arrive. When the silence stretched long enough to hear the clink of cups, she tried a different door. She said our mother was devastated. She said I had humiliated her by leaving that chair empty. She said the family still talked about the wedding and how cold it was to keep them out. I pressed my palms to the table to keep from floating. People confuse warmth with access all the time. A boundary isn't cold, it's weatherproofing. I told Lauren this was the last conversation we were going to have about the past. I told her I wasn't building a future where I had to be on alert during birthdays and holidays scanning for a flash of the person who had already shown me what she was capable of when it cost her nothing. I said I wished her well, and I meant it. Wishing well is easy when you finally stop confusing it with inviting someone to live in your house. She cried. I didn't. Not because I'm hard, but because my tears belong to me and I didn't bring them for display. We stood. She reached for a hug the way people do when they want you to do the last inch of work for them. I took a step back, said goodbye, and walked out into the kind of afternoon that smells like rain before it starts. After, my mother called. She had heard we'd met. She wanted a report card. She wanted reassurances I was coming around. I told her I had listened, and I had decided. She asked what kind of daughter chooses a wedding without her mother. I said the kind who chooses a marriage with herself intact. She hung up. I sat with the dial tone the way you sit with a bruise, aware of it, patient with it, unashamed to watch it change colors. The next day, a package arrived on our doorstep without a return address. Inside was a framed photo of Lauren and me at ages 7 and 9, gap-toothed and sunburned, holding sparklers like we'd invented light. On the back, in my mother's tidy hand, "Don't forget where you come from." I set the frame face down on the counter and stood there until the ache passed. Where I come from matters. Where I'm going matters more. By late June, the house felt different. Not quieter exactly, truer. Ethan cooked on Sundays and left the spoon drawer open just to make me laugh. My dad called to ask about the garden and then, almost awkwardly, to say that he was proud of me in the way that feels like a private blessing. I started a tiny ritual at night. Tea, a book, no phone, 5 minutes to tell myself out loud what I had chosen and why. Lauren posted less. My mother posted more. The family chat settled into a polite simmer I didn't to taste anymore because I wasn't tea at the table. When people wanted an update, I gave them the same one. I'm good. We're good. The door is closed and the windows are open. In July, my father sent a photo from the lake. Water flat as glass, sky the color of a promise, and asked if we might visit in the fall. My mother didn't sign the message, but I could feel her absence inside it. I told him yes, on one condition. No ambushes, no surprise family meetings, no invitations slipping under doors I had already locked. He said okay. He said it like a man who had learned the difference between keeping the peace and keeping a person whole. That night, I took out the wedding album and found the shot of the empty row. I looked at it until what I felt wasn't anger or relief but recognition. That space was the cost of the life I wanted. It wasn't a punishment. It was proof. In August, the family chat woke up again. A cousin posted a selfie at the lake with the caption, "Nothing like family time." And within minutes, my mother messaged me privately. "We're having everyone over next weekend. It would mean a lot if you came. Lauren will be there. We can finally clear the air." I read it twice and felt the old tug, the script where I fly home, sit on the floral couch, and audition for my own place in my family. I replied with one sentence. I wanted to attend any gathering that treats my boundary like a debate topic. That should have been the end. Instead, a new message arrived from an unknown number. "It's Pastor Jim. Your mother asked me to reach out." He wrote about forgiveness like it's a product with a warranty. I told him I wasn't returning anything. I'd never received what I paid for. Lauren tried next. She said she'd drafted a public apology and wanted my input before posting. She attached a screenshot that used words like misunderstanding and drifted apart and we were young. It read like crisis PR without the crisis. I sent back, "You can apologize however you want. You don't get to rewrite what you're apologizing for." She didn't answer. By mid-August, I stopped giving play-by-plays to anyone but Ethan and my dad. Advice can turn into noise fast, even when it's love wearing helpful clothes. I made 2 lists on the back of an envelope, what I control and what I don't tea. Under the first, I wrote, who enters my life, what I respond to, what I believe about myself. Under the second, other people's feelings about my choices. The intervention still happened without me. An aunt sent photos of charcuterie boards and captions about tough conversations, like prosciutto could cushion impact. Later that night, Lauren posted a paragraph about taking accountability, which somehow didn't contain the act she was accountable for. The comments were full of hearts and so proud of yous. I didn't reply. I took out the trash and watered the basil. 2 days later, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, my mother. No warning, no text. Just Margaret on my porch holding a bakery box and that bracing smile she saves for strangers she needs something from. My heart did the stupid leap it still knows how to do. I opened the door, but not wide. She started with small talk, weather flights, the smell of coffee on our block, and then moved to the point. She wanted to see the apartment, wanted to feel where her daughter lives, wanted to leave the cake and say a prayer together. I told her we could talk on the stoop. She looked past me at the furniture and the framed photos like she might lunge. She said she forgave me. She said she forgave me for making the wedding so hard, for pushing family away, for humiliating her in front of relatives who still asked what happened. She said she forgave me for choosing Ethan over us. I felt my face go still the way it does when you trying to keep your dignity from walking off without you. I asked who had forgiven Lauren. She said that wasn't helpful. I said it was accurate. When she started in on the chair, that chair, I interrupted. I told her the truth I'd written and mailed and said out loud more times than I could count, that my boundary wasn't a punishment, that safety isn't cruelty, that love without accountability is just access. And she had confused access for love for so long she thought the door itself was an insult. I told her I would not let her inside. Not today. Maybe not ever. Not until she could say the words that mattered. Lauren chose to hurt you. I chose to minimize it. I'm sorry. She didn't say them. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and tried a different angle. Grandchildren I might have one day. Holidays that would be awkward, the way neighbors talk. I said neighbors don't live in my head. I do. And I'm redecorating. She left the bakery box on the stoop like an offering and walked away without turning back. I stood there long enough for the frosting to sweat through the cardboard. Then I carried the box to the trash and dropped it in. It felt theatrical. It also felt correct. In late August, Lauren sent one last message. I'm going to respect your boundary and stop reaching out. If you ever want me back, I'll be here. I almost replied thank you, just to relieve the pressure. Then I realized the pressure was phantom, habit, not truth. I archived the thread and set a filter so I wouldn't see new messages unless I went looking. My dad called that weekend. He didn't ask for a report. He asked how the basil was doing and whether Ethan had nailed the pasta texture yet. Then, carefully, he said he'd told Mom she couldn't show up at my door again, and if she kept trying, he would stay in a hotel the next time he visited Michigan family. It was a small sentence that landed like a bridge. By September, the house had its own weather. Quiet mornings, clatter of pots on Sundays, the soft sound of Ethan humming while he hunted for the right drawer. I took photos of little things that felt like proof. 2 mugs on a windowsill, a vase of tulips going a little wild, the corner of our rug where the sun lived for an hour a day. Proof that my life fit me when I didn't leave extra space for people who refused to pay rent. That EIS when the message arrived that should have hurt more than it did. A group email from my mother to the women of the family about a Thanksgiving plan that didn't include me. She wrote around me like I was an old address she hadn't updated. For 5 minutes, I felt 12 years old. Then I remembered I'm not an invitation they get to send to myself. Ethan asked if I wanted to host a tiny Thanksgiving, just us and anyone local who needed a seat. I said yes before the sentence was over. I wrote 2 final messages. One to my mother. Please do not come to my home unannounced again. If you want a relationship with me, it begins with acknowledging what happened and how you responded. If you can't do that, I wish you well from a distance. And one to Lauren. I won't be in contact going forward. I hope you keep your promise to stop reaching out. I wish you a good life, over there. Then I blocked both numbers and left their emails filtered into a folder I don't open. The quiet after wasn't silence. It was capacity. I could hear my own thoughts without translating them into something someone else would approve. I could make dinner without practicing conversations in my head. I could walk past my phone and feel nothing tug. I don't know what the family is saying about me now. Maybe the story is that I'm cold. Maybe it's that Ethan changed me. Maybe it's that Portland put ideas in my head about boundaries and therapy, and choosing yourself. They can have their versions. I have mine. And mine comes with receipts, a clean wedding album, and a front door that locks. October in Portland comes in with a wet hush. One morning, I found a plain envelope in our mailbox, no return address, my name written like the pen had been held too tight. Inside was a single sheet from my mother. I want to fix this before the holidays. Your father says I should apologize. I'm sorry for how things looked. I never meant to hurt you. You're my daughter. Let me see you. It was the kind of apology that shakes hands with optics. I read it twice and waited for the sentence that mattered. It didn't arrive. I put the letter in receipts and made soup. A week later, my father texted a photo of the lake back in Traverse City, sky white as paper water the color of old glass, and asked if Ethan and I still planned to visit in November like we talked about. I reminded him of the terms, no ambushes, no surprise drop-ins, no folding chairs set up for a tribunal. He wrote back one word, understood. On a Sunday in late October, Ethan found me sitting on the kitchen floor with the recipe cards my grandmother had left me spread out like tarot. Banana bread in looping cursive, a gravy that required Faith Spice cookies she swore only worked in dry weather. He asked what I was looking for. I told him proof that some things pass down clean. We baked the cookies anyway. They worked. The next day, Lauren posted a photo from the Encinitas Cliffs with a caption about new beginnings. I didn't check the comments. I was starting to understand that curiosity can be a form of self-harm. I deleted the app for the week, and my phone got so quiet I could hear my own footsteps. By early November, Portland tipped fully into dark at 5. I packed a small bag. Jeans, a sweater, the earrings from my grandmother, and a slip of paper with the address of a cafe in Traverse City, where my dad and I could meet in case anything went sideways. On the plane, I thought about the last time I'd flown toward family and not away from fallout. The movement felt new and also like something I'd owed myself for years. At the cafe, my father was already at a corner table, hands around a mug he didn't seem to be drinking. He stood, hugged me once, and sat like he'd practiced taking up less space. We talked about the garden he'd put to bed, the neighbor's new dog, his knee that hated stairs. Then he cleared his throat and said, "Your mother asked if she could stop by while you're here." He didn't look at me. He looked at the window where the sky was trying to decide whether to snow. I told him my answer was the same. I didn't want to manage anyone's disappointment that day. He nodded and said, "Okay," the same way he'd said it in May, like a word you use when you're holding the line with yourself, too. He slid an envelope across the table. "This is from me," he said. Inside was a photograph from our wedding of just the two of us, taken right as we turned toward the aisle. On the back, he'd written, "I'm here, even when I'm quiet." I put the photo in my bag and, for the first time in a long time, let myself lean. We didn't go to the house. We walked by the water, bought a hot pretzel from a cart that had probably been there my entire childhood, and stood on the pier while gulls argued about nothing. He didn't try to sell me on middle ground. He didn't ask me for milestones. He asked if I was sleeping. I said yes. He said good. Sometimes tenderness is boring, and that's the point. Back at the rental that night, my phone buzzed. A new email from my mother. "I'm outside." I looked through the peephole like muscle memory had followed me across state lines. Empty hallway. She meant outside the story. She meant metaphor. Then another. "I can be at the cafe in 10 minutes. I took a breath that tasted like old panic and wrote back, "No, not tonight, not like this." I put the phone face down and listened to the heater clank to life. The next morning, a longer email waited. It began with, "I raised you to be kind," and ended with, "Sisters should be together at Christmas." The middle was the same argument rotated, that the chair at my wedding had been a message to the world about her mothering, that my boundary embarrassed her, that love forgives. I wrote back what I wished I could have said on the porch in August without feeling like I was auditioning for my own life. I was kind for years in ways that injured me. I am still kind. I am also done. If you want to be in my life, start with the truth. Lauren chose to hurt me. You chose to minimize it. I won't meet until you can say that out loud to me. If you can't, I understand. I'm done pretending that pretending is love. Then I closed the laptop and went to meet my father for pancakes. We flew home 2 days later into a Portland that smelled like rain and wood smoke. I unpacked, put the wedding photo from my dad on the bookshelf, and watered the plant that always looks dramatic until you give it a drink. When I turned my phone back on, there was a single new message from Lauren. "I read what you wrote to Mom. I can't give you what you're asking. I'm not that person." It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in years, and it told me everything I needed to know. Mid-November, Ethan and I sent a group text to a handful of friends and neighbors. "Stray Thanksgiving at ours. Bring whoever needs a seat. We'll make the turkey. You bring anything you love." Replies stacked like small lanterns. Someone offered pie, someone mac and cheese, someone deviled eggs because it's not Thanksgiving without a contest between mayo and mustard. I set an extra table on the patio with blankets and mismatched mugs. The weather tried to be mean and gave up. Thanksgiving came, and with it the holiday my mother had warned would be awkward. It wasn't. It was bright and easy and full of stories that didn't require anyone to choose sides because there were no sides to choose. At one point, I caught Ethan watching me from the kitchen doorway, the kind of look that says you've been carrying something heavy so long you didn't notice when you finally put it down. He lifted his glass. I lifted mine. We didn't make a speech. After everyone left, I stood in the quiet kitchen and thought about doors. The ones I'd held open for too long. The ones I'd closed with shaking hands. The ones I hadn't opened at all. I thought about April in Ann Arbor, and June on the lake, and May under the arch, and August on the stoop. I thought about November at our table with people who came because I asked and left because the night ended and no one tried to rewrite anything. December will come. So will more holidays and more messages from people who miss the version of me that let them sit wherever they wanted. Maybe my mother will say the sentence. Maybe she won't. Maybe Lauren will keep her promise to stop reaching out. Maybe she'll try again when the year turns and people get sentimental about repair. Here is what I know now in a way I can say without a tremor. A boundary is not a door slammed, it's a house kept. It's rooms arranged so you can breathe. It's a table set for who shows up with clean hands and honest words. It's the difference between being the bigger person and being your own person. When I finally went to bed that night, the city felt hushed in a way I used to chase and never catch. I turned off my phone and put it in the drawer. I turned toward the man I married because I chose him, and he chose me, and nobody had to perform to earn a seat. The dark held, the quiet stayed, and for the first time, the story didn't ask me for anything in return. December was quiet on purpose. A card from my mother said, "Thinking of you." Lauren posted old pajamas and wrote, "Sisters are forever." I scrolled past. Then an email arrived with no subject line. "Lauren chose to hurt you. I chose to minimize it. I'm sorry." No scripture. No excuses. Just the spine of it, finally. I replied, "Thank you for saying that." In the new year, coffee, just us. No surprises. She answered, "Okay." We met in January at a small cafe near the park. No props, no speeches. She said the sentence again. I told her what it looks like from here. Slow, one coffee at a time, no ambushes, no tests, no holidays together yet. She didn't love it. She said, okay. That was enough, for now. Lauren left a voicemail on New Year's Eve. "I can say what you want. I'm not that person." Strangely, that honesty made everything simpler. I blocked her again and let the room stay calm. At home, Ethan hung a paper star in the window. We cooked, called friends who needed a seat, and kept the house we've been building. One boundary, one promise, one quiet evening at a time. To everyone who's followed this and offered advice, thank you. Your comments and insights helped me see things clearly and gave me the courage to stand up for myself. I don't know where things will go from here with my family, but for now, I'm at peace with my decision, and that to me is worth everything. Am I sad that it had to end this way? A little. But mostly I'm relieved to be done with the drama. Life is too short to spend it tied to people who only bring you pain, no matter how much they claim to love you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Here's to moving forward. Share your thoughts or comment. 1. If you feel my actions align with your own thinking and how you would act.